Hi, and welcome back to The Epic Life as we continue our book study today on the book The Map, The Way of All Great Men by David Murrow. So today we're continuing our journey on the Trail of Submission. If you don't know what that is, go back and watch episode 1. We have a nice little intro that will tell you exactly what that is. But trail marker 3 today. So we kind of gotten a little ways in now up the path of submission on the mountain of manhood. And the trail marker today is called Submitting to the Rules. Now, if you're like me, you hear that phrase and immediately you're like, I don't know about that. That sounds kind of legalistic, or I don't know if I don't really like rules. I don't think anybody really likes rules. And we're going to get into so what's the lesson for us here? What is this trail marker teaching us on this journey? So the lesson for us is this. The third lesson of discipleship is in this passage, and we're going to look at Matthew 3:13 through 15. So if you want to go there, that's cool. If you can't, I'm going to read it off. But what we're going to do is this. We're going to read that off, and then I'm going to share with you guys the lesson. So in Matthew 3:13 through 15, it says the following. Then Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan to be baptized by John. But John tried to deter him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me? Jesus replied, Let it be so now. It is proper for us to do this to fulfill all righteousness. Then John consented. So it's interesting. Listen to Jesus' response. Jesus replied, Let it be so now. It is proper. Interesting word, proper. Now some translations might have that a little different, but all the same, proper for us to do this to fulfill all righteousness. Right? So listen to the lesson here. In the passage, Jesus agrees with John. There's no need to baptize the Son of God. He's perfect. He doesn't need to be baptized, right? Christ has no sins to be cleansed. Sinful John baptizing holy Jesus? Yet, Christ insists on going through with the baptism in order to, quote, fulfill all righteousness. In other words, Jesus is willing to submit himself to the rules and to jump through a few religious hoops even though they don't apply to him. A person's unwillingness to humble themselves to the authority of rules creates the kind of pride that is rampant among Christians today. We have millions who have forsaken Christian fellowship because they can't find a church where they, quote, feel comfortable. If their pastor says something they disagree with, it's off to find a new church, or they won't obey the standards of their congregation and are offended when they don't get to be the exception to the rules. You know, it's interesting. This is a challenge for a lot of people. And by no means am I saying that if your church is teaching like heretical things that you should be like forced to stay there. But you know, it's this idea of like when we go to church, you know, and I'm not talking about legalism, but we should all desire to submit to one another out of reverence, right? To submit to God, to submit to God's truth. And the thing is, God's truth, in all honesty, it's not going to always leave you it's not always going to leave you feeling all warm and fuzzy inside. And no offense, it's not the job of the Bible to make you feel all warm and fuzzy. The Bible is given to us as a gift to convict and to challenge and to iron sharpening iron. Like speaking to guys, like a lot of times we have this sort of rebel in us. We rebel against authority, against rules. Like we want to be sort of our own. So like it's the same sin that Satan fell into. It's pride, you know, and we want to elevate ourselves. You know, I think it's important for us that in order to walk in submission, sometimes we got to the Bible talks about, Paul says, he was trying to be all things to all people. There were times where Paul did things that didn't necessarily apply to him, but you know why he did it? Because he wanted to reach a certain group of people, you know. Or like, for example, when he comes back into Jerusalem, you know, Paul didn't want to offend the Jews. I think there's a passage where it talks about how Paul actually shaved his head and he went through sort of some things to sort of like reach to that group. So the prayer then we want to pray for this trail marker is this. The third prayer of a disciple of Jesus should be this one. Lord, is there any pride in my life that is preventing me from submitting to the expectations of the Christian community you have placed me in? I want to read that again. Lord, is there any pride in my life that is preventing me from submitting to the expectations of the Christian community you have placed me in? I really want you to pray that. But more importantly, I really want you to listen for the answer once you have. Which leads us to our good practical stuff today. In case we get off the trail, here is our GPS to get us back on. GPS is this. Good practical stuff. Are there any opportunities to, quote, fulfill all righteousness that you might be resisting? Again, are there any opportunities to, quote, fulfill all righteousness that you might be resisting? Thanks for joining us. Look forward to seeing you next time for Trail Marker 4.